But what I would like to add on is that in any of the election, apart from the system itself that must be fair and just, the candidates and also the supporters should also bear equal importance, because this will show the world how democratic we are. And in terms of freedom, everyone has freedom to think, freedom to choose, and freedom to opine. This is the most important essence of a democratic country. And we all know that in this world there is no perfect system. Any of the democratic system will also have its advantages and disadvantages. And before I can comment on, let's say, whether our present system is perfect, I would say that it's not. We all know that it's still improving, and I hope in future it will be a better system than previously. And I think Datuk Ambiga is the best person to brief us about the former system of election until today. How much have we progressed, and what is the future expectation for a cleaner and fairer election? And I think in terms of my opinion, I would also like to highly stress that, okay, in terms of the people's mentality, we need to also change our mentality if we talk about democracy, because democracy is a freedom of choice, right? It's a freedom, and freedom of choice means that we have freedom to basically act upon what we think is best for us. And unfortunately, you notice that even on the internet, this freedom was not fully granted. Some people will be very nasty towards people with different opinions. And I guess this is time that we actually look into the entire ecosystem of democratic processes. It's not just the election process that is important. Equally important is the ecosystem for the election. Because even if we fix the election system, but still the environment may be a bit hostile. So we hope that we can actually progress to a more modern and more moderate thinking society, right? So this is one thing, but anyway, members of the floor can have different opinions. I believe that, right? I strongly believe that everyone has the right to opine, and I will defend that for you, okay? All right, so always know that in terms of the voting pattern, for the past few elections, since the 80s or 90s, it's always been a so-called swing voting pattern. And sometimes people will vote for party A, sometimes they will vote for another party. And of course, in the spirit of democracy, I think this is fair, that people can choose between the different parties that they prefer. And the most important thing is the free will to choose. And I believe that people have already exercised that since long time ago. So the spirit of democracy is there. It's just the system that is failing and subjected to a lot of debates, right? So now we hope to be able to revamp the system of election process, the electoral process, so that it becomes more transparent and more acceptable by all. That's the first step. But if we want to progress to, let's say, a highly democratic country, we ourselves will have to change our mindset. We cannot be always thinking that I'm supporting a party that's right, that's just, that's doing everything for the people, and not other party. Then we will be no better than a communist party, right? So that's the most important essence. Any party will carry certain ideologies that the people can choose or prefer. And even for the current coalition, I do have strong hope for the coalition to become better. And as a young blood for Barisan Nasional, I hope my voice can be heard by the top leaders that we need to revamp Barisan Nasional as well. We need to progress, and we need more open-minded people that can actually accept opinions, even from, let's say, Bersih, even from, like, for example, the opposition, the Pakatan, right? So there is no harm on agreeing on the issues, because issues are neutral. It's not a political ideology that we are standing here. We are talking about issues. And on certain common issues, I think we can actually work together. And that's the most important thing for the progress of the country. And I guess many times since the last election, we have seen that some state governments doesn't want to cooperate with the central government. And how will people benefit from that? If we cannot actually have a common ground to work on, and that will be the common issues. And I believe that this is one thing that we have to look into, apart from the election process. Well, after the election, we will still go back to our work, or let's say daily lives. And there's nothing, right? No hate, nothing. We should be neutral enough and mature enough to think for ourselves that this is only during election that we choose side. But after that, when you go back home, don't choose side among your brothers, sisters, parents, okay, sons, daughters, okay. And this is important because, well, you can have freedom to think, freedom to opine, but not freedom to force others to comply. That's the most important thing. I guess for fairer elections in future, we have to look at the ecosystem, including the mindset, including, let's say, the environmental factors such as, let's say, the force being exerted by someone and so on. So that would, of course, constitute some unfair advantage to certain people. I believe that, well, there are many parts, okay? It's not just people. It could be from an agency or from anything else, right? And we need to actually put a stop to that, right? So you have your own freedom to think. That's the best, right? That's the best form of democracy that we are striving for. And of course, in terms of, right, so probably I'll put some time for Q&A afterwards, and then we'll discuss about the issues and matters later.
Lending his support. Obviously, this is something that you see as the way forward, and thank you for being here. Let me just start by saying we clearly share the same goals, which is that we must head to a two-party or multi-party democracy. And that's what Bersih is all about. Now, what I'm going to say, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm sorry if you know you think it's extreme, but I can't sugarcoat anything because I have to say it as I see it. And I've always, in all my dramas, I have said that if Barisan invites me, I will happily come, but I will say the same things that I'm saying everywhere else. I think I can't change what I say, depending on the audience, and I won't. So, pardon me, but that's how it's going to be. But by all means, question me after that and tell me you disagree. I'm fine with that too. Well, let me start with this idea of the multi-party democracy, and that really that is the ultimate goal for Bersih, because it's good for the country. I think everybody realizes that if there are choices, then it means that the public, that the rakyat, can choose the government that they want. When you don't have a choice, then obviously only one party will continue to rule. But if you want a multi-party or two-party democracy, some party has to be prepared to lose. You can't have parties who are going to dig their heels in and say, we never want to lose, because then you will never get a multi-party democracy. And that requires fair play. That requires fair play by everyone. Now, the whole point is this. If you have a multi-party democracy, parties in power or opposition will behave better, because then they have to prove to the people that they have earned the right to govern. And that's what we're looking for. When they have to prove to the people that they've earned the right to govern, you will get transparency, you'll get strong institutions, you will get a strong basis for a democracy in this country. And that is all Bersih is interested in. What we are saying is, we don't mind whoever wins. We just want you to do it in a clean and fair manner. That's it. That's what Bersih is about. That's all we have wanted all along. Now, and at the end of the day, really, if this is our goal, and I'm so happy, Mr. Teoh, that you've started the ball rolling, perhaps 3 days before the elections is better than after, you know, better than never. But it is a conversation we must have. Now, the one thing though I have to disagree is that the Election Commission has implemented 7 of our 8 demands. That's not true. The one demand that they have implemented, and that too not totally satisfactorily, is the indelible ink. That they did. But we had a concern about indelible ink, and we raised it with the Election Commission because they wanted to apply the indelible ink before giving the ballot paper. We thought the indelible ink should be applied after the voting. Because when you give it before the voting, you have chances of smudging, or you never know what could happen. So that was a concern. We raised it with them. They gave us their reasons. Their concern was that if we do it after, people may refuse to mark their finger. So that was their reason. But a greater concern has developed about the indelible ink now. It's not indelible. That's a problem that we are facing. Of course, to their credit, EC did a demonstration this morning for reporters, and as I understand it, they actually applied it to the reporters' fingers and tried to wash it off with soap. It couldn't be washed off. That's the position as it stands. But we'll have to leave it for a few hours and see, if they use other substances, whether it makes a difference. The theory, or the reason they put forth was that the clerks concerned didn't shake the ink bottles. Now, I'm not a chemist, but I would have thought indelible ink is either indelible or it's not. So I have a problem with that reasoning, but never mind, I'm not a chemist, that there may be a scientific explanation. But what I've said, what we have suggested, what Bersih has suggested is this. Look, let's not argue over the press or anything. EC, please, disclose your guidelines that you have given to your clerks. Then we will know what the clerks are supposed to. If they're supposed to gonchang the bottle, we will stand there and make sure they gonchang the bottle before they mark our finger. So that's what we have asked EC to do. So whenever a problem is raised, what really gives confidence to the people is the response of the bodies who are running the elections. The body who's running the elections and whoever is in charge. That's how you inspire confidence in us. Now, there is another incident. These are the things that are of concern to us. The latest, and I cannot go without mentioning it, is this allegation that the opposition has raised about plane loads of people from East Malaysia coming here, etc., etc. That's coming out, and they say they have evidence. Now this, we have to be very responsible about what we say about this. We are waiting to see how the facts emerge. But I will only say this, that again, when allegations, serious allegations like this are raised, what do we expect? We expect a response. We expect a response from the airline, who purportedly brought in these people. We also expect a response from the caretaker government, because it's a serious allegation. Silence in these instances is not an option. So that's what we expect. I'm just saying that's what we expect. I'm not making any pronouncements about it, but I think it needs to be handled very responsibly. But if it's true, it is frightening. I hope that there is a reasonable explanation, because we're told that planes were coming in the wee hours of the morning. I don't know. The good thing is you can't hide a plane. Neither can you hide a passenger manifest. All right? Neither can you hide people. So, the truth will emerge. But what Bersih has said is that whoever is involved in any of these activities, they must face the full force of the law. There should be absolutely no mercy for anyone who is involved in activities in defrauding our electoral system. So that, and I'm sure that everyone will agree with that. You break the law, you've got to face the full force of the law, because this is our election. Now, the other 8 demands, the other demands that we're talking about, we talked about no political violence. There is political violence. How did the EC fulfill that condition? They could have, by coming out with very strong guidelines, and I know EC, you all have nothing to do with EC, yeah? EC is supposed to be independent, supposed to be. So they should have immediately come up with guidelines in relation to issues of violence. Now, you, Mr. Teoh, came out and you have spoken and said you do not condone political violence. If only the government from last year. Political violence didn't happen just over the last 2 weeks. It's been going on since last year. If only the leadership had come out and said, we will not condone this, and whoever is responsible will face the music. That's all they needed to say, and they could have put a stop to it. And that's our thought.